Welcome to the next episode of the Assembly Line podcast, the place where industrial businesses come to tell their story and give you the tools you need to become an authority within your industry. Today, I'm excited to be joined by George Davies, Managing Director, and Freddie Smith, Operations Manager of George Davies Turf. George and Freddie are experts in the turf supply industry, with George Davies Turf being in the business for over 20 years. They've developed a wealth of knowledge in the trade, from building relationships with suppliers and customers to managing the sales and marketing of turf across the UK. Their mission is to deliver fresh quality turf to their customers right where they need it, whether that's a domestic property or a commercial requirement. They've earned a reputation for service of the highest quality and reliability within the trade. It's our absolute pleasure to be joined by George and Freddie on the podcast. George, Freddie, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks, to be fair, Joe. Really excited to be involved in this today.
Yeah, fabulous, Joe. Thank you very much for having us, both of you.
Fantastic. Well, firstly, George, if we could get into it, I'd really like to hear more about the founding story behind the business and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. I must admit, I certainly started off, the business was never, ever meant to be what it is today. We're basically a family, been farming for years and years and years. All I wanted to ever do was drive a tractor and a farm. Ended up basically going to university for Newcastle, doing an agriculture degree. Spent a couple of years working as a farm business consultant for 2 years. And to be honest, on that side of things, I was always on the wrong side of the fence. I was always working for the landlords against tenant farmers. I was always working for the banks against base tenant farmers. And agriculture is ups and downs, but obviously at that time it was going through a bit of a big sort of trough, and they were going to expand the business on the back of the farmers. I was like, you know what, guys, you filling boots, but I'm out of it. I'm not. Doesn't feel right. Father was basically get on a little bit, and so when he came back on the farm, I actually wanted to get into corporate entertainment, but basically came back on the farm and really came to a point where effectively we are growing wheat, barley, oilseed rape on the farm. I wanted to grow alternative crops: lavender, roses, sage, peppermint, chamomile, crops I can grow and process and refine and still market. But the investment was astronomical, and it came to a point where it's like, what else can we do with the farm? And it's like, growing stuff, not a great deal, but on our doorstep, we have Milton Keynes. Milton Keynes, whether I like it or not, 20 years ago, would have doubled in size, and it has done the last 20 years, and it will do again in the next 20 years. It's like, what do these guys want? Trees, shrubs, plants, turf. Can we grow turf? Look to growing turf, wrong soil, type of irrigation. Went to all the local growers locally to us, and they were growing some pretty good stuff, to be fair. But at that point in time, I was dragging my dad around the country to look at every opportunities. Went to a franchising conference up in Stony in Warwickshire, which will be exhibiting there in September, where there was a firm called Scenic Blue. Scenic Blue was a landscape franchise that effectively, when Charlie Dimmock and Alan Titchmarsh were all the rage and Ground Force were going crazy, they had joined forces with a firm called Lindham Turf to produce Scenic Blue turf. And I, at that time, was actually picking his brains about growing turf on the farm still, and he basically just sort of said, George, absolutely no chance. I saw him in the January, which was January 2001, and I was blown away with the quality of turf they were producing in the Valley of York. Old sugar beet, carrot, potato land, free draining, full irrigation, and the quality of turf that they were basically producing was second to none. And basically, we bought a franchise. The plan was, if I could make about 11 grand a year from the turf business, 11 grand a year from the farm, 22 grand, I could just about buy a mortgage. And that was my plan. We had a little car, Peugeot 306. We basically bought a trailer. I was delivering 45 rolls of turf at a time. And I did that for a year and a half until I bought an old 7.5 ton lorry, and then ran that for a couple of years, and then bought a big 20 ton lorry in 2003. But effectively, after 3 years, when I was out delivering turf, I should be spraying on the farm. And when I was out spraying, I should be delivering turf. And I was like, guys, I'm going to fall between two stools. I can't do the farm correctly. I can't do the turf job correctly. But I feel with the farming, unless you've got a big wad of cash and go and buy more land or you go and rent more land and effectively wait for that land to become available, you're so limited. With the turf business, I was like, look, if I want to expand, I'll get more customers. and nobody is going to stop getting more customers apart from myself. So let's go and get some more customers. And that's really, I had an opportunity where I could actually say, okay, right, I can expand this business. Not ever think it would be what it is today, but that was a plan to try and sort of push on. So really, that in a nutshell is why we're here today. But effectively, the farm, the location, and probably as sort of seeing Milton Keynes as a potential opportunity for the future. And then go on to that, the Oxford-Cambridge arc for the next 50 years, that is the main growth area. And we are right in the right place to take advantage of that and to provide that growth area with as many products and services, really so focus on turf, as the market demands, really.
Fantastic. It sounds like certainly a journey from the Peugeot to your fleet that you have today. Freddie, I'm interested to hear from you as operations manager within the business a bit more about your sort of personal journey that led you to the role that you're currently in the business, and finally any kind of pivotal moments and experiences that influenced that career path for you.
Well, I mean, I've been with George now for over 10 years, which, I mean, we were talking just before we started about the fact that both of us have gone grey in the time that I've been working for George. But I actually started out in the landscape supply industry at a small local independent builders merchants in my hometown. I worked there on a Saturday just for a little bit of extra cash when I was at school holidays, just helping out. And that was back when Ground Force was on TV and Charlie Dimmock and Alan Titchmarsh were all the rage. Everybody wanted to do something in their garden themselves because they were being shown how to do it every Saturday. Was it Saturday night, Friday night on BBC? And so, yeah, I was just in there helping out, selling patios, advising customers what they'd need to do it. And when time came for me to leave school, I just thought, actually, I want to go and work. And it seemed like a natural progression for me. And that company was quite small, and so I was doing lots of little jobs within that company. I worked out on landscape teams. I did a bit of selling. I looked after customers. I actually ended up driving for them in the end because that was where they wanted me to be. But sort of the thing that I always enjoyed the most was looking after people, making sure they got what they wanted, when they wanted it, how they wanted it. And that was what I really got a kick out of. And I was actually a customer of George's. So the company that I worked for, we used to supply George's turf. And when the opportunity came up, I got wind that there might be an opportunity to go and work for George. I was definitely dropping my CV in there. So I went to go and drive for George. That's when I started out delivering turf. I'd been very, very local in my hometown previously. And then, I was then delivering all over George's patch, which included London, which were a 25-year-old driving a lorry around London. That was new and exciting for me at the time. Then it became what it is now. I started looking after his St Albans depot for him, and then in 2020, I came up to head office. Things up here. Yeah.
I think Fred's probably the only employee we've actually had that did try and poach. We basically got wind. There was a guy coming in, basically, I think a red sort of check, sort of jacket type of thing, like sort of a fleece jacket type of thing. He used to wear all the time. He was coming in. He was always on time, always polite. Very meticulous, putting the turf on the lorry. Always basically doing his size up really quickly. Just a really nice guy that would never sort of stand around chatting too much. And I said to Martin, I said, okay, this guy sounds like he's worth a look. Okay, let's just drop into conversation that he was interested in opportunity from TV. And so it was great. And then we went and had a quick beer in Tollington, I think, those days. We met halfway, had a quick beer in Tollington pub. And that was it. But again, for me, attitude's everything. And when you're a small business now, and you see somebody that's got the right mindset or attitude, it was like, okay, this guy's got something in. And I think it's testament to Fred the way he is the last 10 years to where we are today. And in the day, it's not every time you go and employ a lorry driver, or basically lorry driver at the time. and you see something in that you actually want to progress and push on. But having Fred alongside me, being here literally nearly half life of business, and the last 10 years we've grown so much, and yeah, I'm still learning. At the end of the day, look, I've never went into this. I've never sort of run a business before. I'm learning all the time, and it's, have Fred on the side is fantastic. And it's not just Fred. We've got a really good team that have been here 8, 9, 10 years, and that really bolster that sort of support and work together. So yeah, it's great.
We've all done training in that time. I mean, the industry's grown massively since we've been part of it.
Yeah.
But not only has the industry grown, but the way that we do things has changed. And we've taken coaching, we've done sales training, we've taken business coaching. We've all done that together, and it's been really good fun doing it. You know, every day really is a school day. It turns out.
Yeah,
I think probably back in 2017, I probably pushed a bit up too hard because we were down in London doing a CMI course in London, a full day, 8 till 5, and then we got on the train to Leicester. Went and listened to Brad Sugars do a speech in Leicester, basically head of action coach, until I think it was up past 10, 11 o'clock. Crashed out that night. Got on the train at like 4:30 in the morning from Leicester, back down to Milton Keynes, back down to London again for our second day of our level 1 training course in Miranda, and that was fairly full on. But again, that's the sort of stuff that again, with Freddie and Dave sort of doing that and embracing that and doing stuff on the train as well. We're working that day as well. We don't stop. And I think in a way that's a testament to the business where we are. We want to learn. We want to just learn for our own benefit, but also for our customers' benefit. Because everything we're trying to do is literally ultimately without our customers, we haven't got business. So it's still good fun. I still love it after 20 years. It's great.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's amazing to hear a bit about both of your journeys so far. I'd be very interested to see if there's been any challenges throughout that journey or any obstacles, and how that kind of experience for them has maybe helped you in terms of your sales and marketing approach.
I mean, yeah, obstacles. There's been hundreds, absolutely hundreds, and I think, and again, imagine you're the amount of times I was told when we started, George, you've got no chance. The turf industry is so competitive. You haven't got a chance in hell. And when you've got Europe's largest grower of turf that has depots all over the country with great marketing, great depot, great infrastructure, they were using third-party haulage firms, but basically growing the turf in the Valley of York, so identical quality turf, if not at times probably slightly better, slightly lighter. And you're here trying to compete against them and trying to carve out a market, because ultimately I have to make this work. I have to have a go at it, because effectively I've invested all my savings into this franchise. That was the obstacle, and it was like the only way we can do that is to really carve out a niche and look after people and service. I spent every weekend at garden shows, every weekend basically left, right, and centre, thinking if I'm doing that, he's employed. He can't basically just go and do X, Y, and Z and bits and pieces and push and do endless hours, because he's probably got a wife and kids. At that time, I had girlfriend, didn't last very long. But yeah, no commitment at all. And it was like, you can, in the early 20s, you can go and put your foot to the metal and just work your socks off. But in terms of getting a name out there, people had never heard of it. Scenic Blue Turf, who? Rowlawn, Bletchley Turf, Ivanhoe, Everfarm. You know, I mean, they were household names. Even there's a guy, Jason, who I've known for years and years and years, used to work for one of the turf farms years ago. He saw it in the Farmers Weekly and remember laughing and chuckling, literally, how is this guy going to make money by buying in turf Yorkshire and selling it? No chance. Well, we're still here. So that was an obstacle in terms of actually trying to actually establish yourself in a really established marketplace. And when you've got landscapers that are very, very loyal, they're only going to change when they get let down, either by quality or price or service, bits and pieces. So you've got to play a waiting game. And it was literally working our socks off those 2 or 3 years, picking up people as they fell by the wayside. I remember basically at the time when the different managers, I said, George, yeah, you basically live off the scraps. Effectively, all the good guys are staying with us, but you just got to pick up off the scraps and stuff. And it was hard. But after 3 years, it was as if like, he's still here. He's still banging on our door. He's still being annoyed. He's still basically on the phone. Let's give him a go. And after that 3 years, it was like everybody said, okay, all right, have a go at that. And I think it is that critical time where you've got to be around. You've got to be persistent. But my word, the peaks and troughs. Are we going to make it? Yes, we are. No, we're not. Yes, we are. No, we're not. And there's a guy, Ellis Cummins, who basically retired now. He phoned me out. Obviously, he phoned a phone effort to try and suss me out. Oh yeah, George, I'm a landscaper. Called X, Y, and Z. I want X hours on turf a week type thing. I was just like, wow, that's a golden conversation. Find out 2 months later that basically he's been just trying to test the marketplace, and you get so deflated because you get so excited. This is the one. And I think in the early days it was very much high and lows all the time. But also the quality of the product. When I'm putting my name to that product, I had to know full well that literally it was consistent at all times, and that was really emotionally tough at times, because you can go and provide the best service, you can turn up on time, you can be polite, you can go to the nth degree, you can pull various strings, but when you have a load of turf that is weak and it's not up to standard, and effectively it is really disheartening because there's nothing else you can do. I've done all I can in my control, but ultimately I'm not in control of the end product. Over the years, we're working with some great suppliers and a few suppliers around, but we're now working with those really, really closely to make sure that product is absolutely bang on point. 99% of the time, we can't get it right 100%. It's a natural product. The weather's all over the shop, but yeah. So that's probably a few of the hurdles, Andreas. But I think also the hurdles of being a farmer, being that mindset where you're a complete control freak, where your dad has always worked endless hours, longer hours, and I had that first 10 years in business where my old man was like, George, you can't employ anybody, you can't trust anybody. Nobody will do it like you're going to do it. And having that mindset literally banged into you every day, every week, when you do eventually employ somebody and they do something wrong, it's like, oh yeah, he was right. Yeah, they're unreliable, they're this, they're that. And it's a whole sort of confirmation bias sort of type thing comes through the play. Effectively, it was actually seeing Brad Sugars up in Leeds in 2009 when I saw a completely different philosophy, different approach to employing people. And now I'm 21 staff, and I love it. And for somebody that was so blinkered and so tunnel vision, and I think in any business, it's so hard to let go, and it's so hard to allow people to come on and give you a hand. But ultimately, if you accept that anybody you take on will only do 75% of the work that you can do yourself, that's great. When you're expecting somebody to do exactly what you can do at all times, every day of the year, year in, year out, you're never going to find that person. But having 21 people doing 75% of what I've been doing is far greater than me, 100%. And absolutely, yeah. And I'm loving that. There's the ball behind us, that above the line board, absolutely fundamental in terms of getting the values of the culture right of the business. So that's on that sort of obstacle side. In terms of the marketing side, then yes, obviously, again, I was never marketing. I was always quite creative and wanted to do that outside of the box. But we've taken some advice along the way. We've tried different things along the way. But yeah, there's been absolutely endless. Anybody goes to the business, knowing what you know now, would you have started? No way. But you know what? I've absolutely loved it. And I think people, unless you just go flat out, you're never going to basically have that sort of same journey and excitement. And you gotta have the real big lows to appreciate the highs. If there's all smooth sailing, it'd be pretty boring.
Yeah, that's a really interesting outline. I mean, I'm just interested to hear back in those early days, and I think this is one of the biggest transitions that we see within industrial businesses, within agricultural businesses, is the change in terms of activities that sales and marketing has actually taken. So I'd be interested to hear any sort of stories, any sort of experiences from those early days about what were those sales and marketing approaches that you were using compared to maybe some of the things that you're looking at doing now.
Well, let's go back to when we first started. I mean, in the day, probably the reason why the business is actually here is actually probably for mobile phones. I got my first phone in 1998 at university. Started business in 2000. At that time, when I was driving, it was legal to have basically a phone glued to your ear. Okay. There's absolutely no way that I would be able to employ somebody to answer the phone while I was out doing delivery. No chance. So I spent the first good few years, until that 10 years, on the phone and driving at the same time. So that was a massive game changer, and a game changer that obviously previous turf suppliers hadn't had. It ended up basically with Bluetooth technology. That was incoming calls, outgoing calls, and effectively that was the way it operated. But when I first started cold calling, I had a bundle of 150 minutes or something on the orange little thing. So I couldn't afford to use mobile phones to phone customers out. So I was basically using a landline. So landline in the portal cabinet, yellow pages, Tom's directory. That was my only real source of data to go at. And just going through literally every landscaper in our patch, Milton Keynes, Northampton, different directories. And I'd be there just literally just banging away at calls. And no one heard of you. We sat mouth shots, you're chasing those up. We spent so much time basing out quotations, going to see people running around with little pieces of turf in the back of the 306, seeing folks on site. Golf courses, just banging on doors, getting out and about, just trying to just go and make friends, really. I think also, I was thinking last night about this, is that I think in the first 10 years, I did 14,000 deliveries. Now, because of me, that's 14,000 basic site visits, right? Now, some of those were repeat customers, but a lot of those were one-off customers. And if I can turn up 14,000 times with a smile on my face and be helpful and be polite and the turf's great, the whole premise was if they could try and refer me to a friend or a colleague or something else, the word of mouth business was effectively all relied upon for those early years, because there was a website, there was no social media, website didn't arrive until 2011. Social media arrived in 2012, 2013, but I didn't do anything with it until Freddie came along, really, to be fair. LinkedIn started last year. I mean, I was proud of what we were doing, but it was very much an old traditional way of marketing. We did basically, we ended up writing handwritten postcards. That was a fantastic little thing we did basically back in 2012, which picked up some great customers. So, but it was all fairly old school compared to now what we're doing now with our CRM system, the email marketing, LinkedIn, the social media platforms, the website, looking at AI and stuff. It's so far removed, but ultimately we have a focus in the office still on the phones, because with the phones you can look after the folks, you can communicate with folks, you can be that extra arm to them. Those landscapers, they're fairly, to a degree, obviously everyone's going through, but they're quite earthy people, they're quite down-to-earth people, they're hands-on people, their hands dirty. Not everybody's on email all the time. And so I think in a way it's really important we still provide that sort of another service on the phones to them. Yes, we are looking at apps and bits and bobs and change that to allow and cater for other needs, but ultimately it starts with just on the phone and just being polite.
George, I mean, this is obviously before my time, but I've heard this story lots, and I think it's one that you guys really get a kick out of. Hearing in a bit more detail, is George carved his niche out back in the day by being different, as you've heard. You know, he was sales, he was marketing, he was the delivery driver, he was customer service, he was the person that followed up if there was a complaint. You know, he was everything. The very definition of a one-man band. But one of the best pieces of it's not marketing, but one of the very best stories that we tell is that he broke down in his lorry one day, and instead of, you've got a product on board that only lasts 24 hours at a push. It's got to get there, and if you break down, you can't deliver that turf tomorrow because that turf is dead. And instead of just calling up his customers and saying, "I'm sorry, I'm going to let you all down, I'm not going to deliver," he bribed the breakdown people that came to come and pick him up to complete his delivery circuit. So he picked up, this wasn't in his Peugeot 306 in a trailer. This was when he had his 26 ton.
Yeah.
So it was being dragged around by a wrecker. Completing his delivery, because letting people down was something that your niche was. I'm going to deliver great quality products with a smile on time, and I'm never going to let you down. And that was your sort of USP.
And I remember that morning vividly. George Cross Golf Course was that we got to the last drop, Moore Park Golf Course. I remember thinking Moore Park Golf Course, it was a big customer to us. We looked after them to degree, but I remember thinking that when I turned up, basically being towed by a wreck, the turf on the back of the lorry, at least they know I'm not lying. And it was literally, it's no literally, this is me, I'm delivering the turf, I'm sorry an hour late, but I'm here, here's a turf, and carry on. And that probably is. But that's just second nature. At the end of the day, that was everything we were doing. And if for whatever reason we sold out of turf and stuff, I'll be going to the lorry. I'll go X, Y, and Z to get the turf up to come back for the order. Yes, it would cost me a fortune in time, but again, time is an investment as well to the customer, so it wasn't really part of the parcel. But yeah, he was doing everything we could at all times to put the customer right at the forefront. And I think actually fact that just go off a tangent. When I was at university, I had a source of old computers. That I was plugging basically to the faculty and various folks at the university. And 3 months in, one of the screens had gone down. It was an old 386, and the screen had gone down. And it's nuts now thinking about it, because there's no planet networks like there are today properly. But I got a bus from Newcastle, like 15 quid, Newcastle down to Junction 14. Met the old man at Junction 14 with the screen on my lap. Met him there, and went straight back on the bus again. It was like 5.5 hours, basically up at Darlington, New Durham stuff. So 11-hour round trip with a screen just to replace a screen that had gone faulty. Now, I look back at that, nuts, but that was probably ingrained in me. That's what I wanted to do. I wasn't going to let someone down. I couldn't afford to pay a courier. I couldn't afford to go down there. So yeah, probably that sort of stuff is probably the reason why we are doing what we are today. But if I say I'm going to do it, we'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, that passion of really not accepting a customer to be dissatisfied, I think is really amazing. And I think companies or businesses, that have that as a core value, I think they are the ones that are really the industry leaders and the ones that are really going to drive the market ahead. And you're right as well, in terms of over the 20 years, there's obviously been a lot of change in technology, in the way that we're doing things. So naturally, you had to evolve there. But there's been other things that happened over that 20-year period as well. So there's been a lot of economic fluctuations, maybe some innovations in the industry as well. I'd be interested to see how you navigated around that and how that kind of affected your sales and marketing strategies.
Yeah, I mean, probably quite pivotal. Obviously, 2008, I remember basically it's the first, I just pressed a button in July 2008 on the 8-plate Scania, paid 85 grand cash for it.
That was your first new lorry.
That was the first new lorry. Obviously, then going back in that year, basically into recession, the credit crunch, bits and pieces. 9, 10, it was tough. I think effectively at that point we had a real good core customer base where effectively I could look after them individually and provide a lot of repeat business to them at all times. Most of those lads were basically site workers, of course, site shutdown. And effectively it was like, right, okay, so that market is basically going to shrink or stopped. We need to get more market share. We need to basically increase the area. Now, at that time I was still on my own. I had one child in 2007. Twins were basically due in 2010, and I'm thinking I can't do any hours. I need some sleep, and I'm going to kill myself or somebody else on the road. And at that time, we had opportunity to buy a depot in St Albans, North London. And the main premise was thinking, look, when we come out of recession, there's more money in London, and it always starts in London, and effectively the money will be there, and it will ricochet out of London, and basically St Albans is in the right place. So I want to be there at the right time to try and take advantage of as and when things pick up again after recession. So we put a ball business down there, which also meant that I could try and justify having one full-time driver to deliver in Oldham in the morning and St Albans in the afternoon. And effectively that enabled us to try and sort of get off the lorry a little bit and try and push on the marketing. That's when the website was started to create, Andreas, and effectively like, okay, look, we need to start focusing on domestic, the smaller household, so customers, which we had started right in the outset. We'd advertised in the yellow pages massively when we first started. But when I was driving the car and the phone's going crazy, answering for 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, I was like, I couldn't take car payments because they hadn't got a car payment machine. And it was like, there's a lot of phone calls for not a lot of margin. I'd much rather have a smaller number of customers that were doing the big volume, but less margin, but effectively it's all I can cope with. So at that point, on St Albans, they had to get more manpower in the office to actually cater with more inquiries coming through. And that probably was a start of really trying to pick things up. But I think at that time as well, when folks were more discerning, the climate was then that the homeowners wanted to go and source the products themselves from me and buy the materials for the landscapes to do the job, rather than landscape basically source materials from me, thinking that they're basically going to put markup top tier. The fact that basically they're paying top dollar and effectively it would be the same as the other round. But from my point of view, we were getting more margin. We were basically, the credit card machine was coming in, and that probably changed it a lot and probably meant that we could really try to dial in and sort of hit the domestic market as well. What also happened in 2013 is our competitor decided to call it a day in St Albans, and I got very sort of closely with the guy in there. I can't say too much on here probably, but effectively I gave him a good drink basically for a list. And to be fair, that was the best money I ever spent. Went down there, got it, and I was on the phone and smashed that list out. And I think most of that list we still got on books today. But it's about seeing opportunities, take opportunities, and just going for it. And when you have an opportunity, yes, I had 2 folks in the office at that time, but I was like, no, that's my list. I'm smash this list out because effectively this is an opportunity to try and get more sales, to get more lorries, and everything else. So, answer your question.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I mean, I'm interested to hear, and I think Freddie, this might be a good one for you, or if it's an older campaign, maybe for you, George. But if there was one marketing campaign that you maybe launched over the last sort of 10 years, let's say, which one would you pick as one that was most effective? Would it be the postcards through doors? Would it be the call lists? What's a sort of a campaign or a strategy that really you feel like was quite pivotal for the business?
I think it would be the postcards and the phone calls, but it's the personality that comes behind it, and that's why George said I'm going to take that list, because he was nobody. Well, I'll say nobody. A lot of people don't naturally enjoy cold calling, do they? But it's about putting your personality into it, so it's not a cold call. I don't know about you guys, but when somebody rings up here and it's a cold call, it just straight away it's how can I get off the phone as fast as possible, right? But if somebody takes the time to get to know you, to get their personality across quickly, and things like the handwritten postcards, that George, you drop them through people's letterbox, didn't you? And it's, have you seen that? It's got, I mean, it's very old, this postcard, but it's got your list of USPs that you had, and that's what marketing was back in the day. It was producing a nice brochure or a nice leaflet with a set of USPs on it that sort of laid you out. And I think they were very successful, weren't they?
They were, and I think in a way, I mean, Andy Moore from Watchford's, I don't know if he listens to this, fantastic, Andy. When you're marketing, when you're doing things differently, when you have a real high, and bearing in mind at that point, we were basically phoning up left, right, and centre, whole North London. But when I get a phone call from Andy, who, bearing in mind, I'd phoned him and emailed him bits and pieces, and he said, George, you just sent me a postcard. I said, yep. He goes, I get thousands of emails every day, and it's delete, 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 delete. I got that. Come to me. I was like, wow, it works. And it's been different. And again, if you have a handwritten letter or postcard, we do Christmas cards still, right? Christmas cards we send out, handwritten Christmas cards. But effectively, we get Christmas cards sort of designed. I got some wacky idea and design them, but again, they go out handwritten Christmas cards. If you get a handwritten piece of marketing material, you won't throw it in the bin.
It certainly takes a bit of time for it to get there.
Yeah, and I think that's really that was a great campaign. And when you get one win, it gives you that confidence to keep going with it. We had a lady in Louise in the office. I mean, a lot of golf courses we supply today. She was sending these postcards out to golf courses, to greenkeepers. It suddenly makes that cold call a warm call. You actually got a bit of an interest. You've got a conversation to have to start with. You've got 10 seconds. Say, literally, I'm the worst person. If I get a cold call, I might get my chance to get away. I'm a nightmare, unless somebody can get my attention. But if you start off, I know this is a cold call, and I know you're going to cut me off. But give me 5 seconds that I can help you. And it's like, come on, that's how we go with it. And you know you've got 10 seconds to get their interest, and you've got to basically give them a little bit of a hook, and then start asking them questions. And if you start asking them questions, start being interested in what they're doing and what their problems are, because they have a supplier, everyone has a supplier, everyone's fine. But if you start asking questions, you start to sort of sow a little bit of doubt that, okay, was it ever an issue in a period of time and stuff that needs to be done differently or whatever? And look, that's fine. Leave it at that. As and when you get next let down, just give us a call. It's very much a soft approach. Literally, I'm not trying to take a call now, but as and when things happen, please make us the next call or the first call you make afterwards. And that was it. And it was really a long sort of time approach. Sort of short. I never wanted to sell anything now. It was just like, we're here to help. If you need us, that's great. That's it.
Somebody once said to me, they went to go and buy a car, and the salesman was really helpful, really, really friendly. Like George said, took the time to get to know them. And it was very different to an approach they'd ever had from anybody else before. And when they asked the salesman why they just, because I don't just want to sell you one car, I want to sell you every car you ever buy going forwards. And that's the sort of the ethos behind it. We want to help folks, because if we can help them, they'll only ever pick the phone up and call us. And that's what we want.
Andres, you said what one marketing strategy has been the most effective the last 10, 20 years? Customer retention and word of mouth and looking after those guys. In the day, we've got 10, 20, 22 years. If I lose a customer, I'm gutted. I hate it. There was one I lost back in 2014, September 15th, 2014, and I'm let every Christmas with a bottle of wine bang on his door still, and I'll get him back. It hurts, but again, that's 9 years later, and I'm still after it. It was something that's out of our hands, and I'm cross at the time, but it wasn't us. It was let down. But effectively, that was enough for him to make him walk, and that still hurts. So I do not like letting customers down at all. And if we do make a mistake, we're the first ones to hold a hand up and say sorry. Things do happen, but I think we sort of see now, and I'm trying to get. Well, Freddie is certainly taking on board in the team. Is that when things do happen, it's a great opportunity to actually show how good you are, and to show you really do care. And we see a massive amount of time we've turned people around the last year that have been, unfortunately, being let down for various one thing or another. That's when you can get a chance to show who you stand for, what you stand for.
Yeah. Don't judge us. Don't judge us when things are going great. You know, when everything's going brilliantly, it's easy, right? You know, you pick the phone up. Can I have my stuff delivered? Then, yeah, of course you can. Not a problem at all. We'll get that done, and it all just goes smoothly. Nobody ever remembers, or you don't really talk about the time when everything goes swimmingly. What you remember is when, you know, hit the fan, things go wrong, things are tough. Who helped me? Who did their absolute best?
Because also, I think it's all down to emotion. So you say something happens, either someone's late, or you can't get that job finished because of X, Y, and Z. And if you're at the end of the line, you know that call. You're already expecting them to say, sorry, not my fault. That's happened to them, nothing to do with me. Sorry, get on with it. So that call is already fairly wound up, thinking, I know he's going to say it. But when you don't say it, really sorry, look, what we do, we really sorry. And you start to work with them. Suddenly, wow, all right, didn't expect that. And that's what we try and do time again. Because, look, we just want customers to be happy. The happier they are, and we do want to sort of start some sort of referral scheme, because we actually want to sort of say thank you to our landscapers and our customers that are being loyal, and a lot of them do refer us left, right, and centre. And in a way, it means some sort of system in place, and hopefully for the next 6 months of the year, we'll get some sorted out where we can actually, if folks are referring us, I want to say thank you. I want to give them sort of something back to say, look, we really appreciate it. So trying to refer to other folks.
Yeah, and I mean, George, I completely agree with you. I think client retention is so important in all businesses, really, and it's so key to growth in the future. I think, especially at the beginning, it's acceptable to have or to lose, some clients. It's really inevitable. But I think if you're losing the same amount of clients the next year and the next year, then you're clearly doing something wrong. That should be some kind of like a declining line where you're fixing the problems that cause that client to leave in the first place, and eliminate that really.
Andres, sorry to just add another thought that I think is actually critical. And yes, the customers are absolutely key. And yes, the client is absolutely key. But the relationship we have with our suppliers is as critical, if not even more critical.
Yeah.
Because without the suppliers, we can't provide the customer service. And I think we had a big party last September, 21 years. And we were 300 folk there.
Yeah.
And we invited all our customers, but as well as all our suppliers. Because effectively, it was literally, without those guys, we haven't got business. And when things do happen, and if you've got that relationship with the suppliers, they're there to help you out, then effectively means you can actually provide that level of service to customers to a nth degree. If you're a faceless company and you just treat your suppliers like some folks do, and don't pay them on time, and you don't respect them, and you don't give them Christmas presents and bits and pieces, whatever, then when the chips are down, they don't want to support you. And so that is absolutely critical. We work really hard with our suppliers to make sure that we respect them. Well, one of the main aims is we want to be the best customer to them that they've ever got. Fact. And that's really what we try and do, and work with them and respect them, and it's a partnership. So again, it's not directly the answer you're after, but it's also a very, 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 very important indirect answer.
But in terms of marketing, that event was very successful actually, but also quite scary because, as George has said, we are essentially a service ad middleman, or middle person to be a little bit more PC. And so the thought of putting a load of our customers in a room with our suppliers could have been potentially problematic, but it just isn't, because of what we do and the way we do it. Nobody can look after that set of customers. Yes, we're putting them in the same room as a supplier, but they can't be looked after in the same way as we do to them. And equally, the customer can't go direct to the supplier because they're not the best customer, because that's us. We're the best customer of the supplier. And so it was. Shouldn't we? Actually, it was brilliant. It was a really successful event.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really interesting point. Going back to the evolution of digital marketing. So obviously within the e-commerce space, there's been quite a radical change, I would say, in terms of technology and marketing, with platforms online, or being able to advertise online and sell products to a much bigger scale. How has that impacted, or how did that affect your work there at George Davies Turf?
Well, that's been really good fun, because you have to put, before I answer this one properly, you have to put the turf industry into the context of the rest of the world. So it's farming based. So all the supply is on a farm. And if you live 5 minutes away from a farm, then you can have the freshest available turf possible, can't you?
Yep.
But, farmers' neighbours, they're other farmers. They don't need turf. And we were a multi-million-pound turnover company, still handwriting invoices before we had our CRM system, and we absolutely wouldn't have been in the minority there. In other industries, in other sectors, you'd be, your eyes would be out on stalks at the thought of writing out in triplicate that many invoices. And so time was, you had a website. If you had a PPC budget, Google Ads, that would have been about it, really. As long as you had everything tracked, you knew you were getting a return for that, and you could put a bit more into it. And you had online shopping, but again, that's only that we've, as an industry, we're very late to that party, I think. Yes, websites have been around for a long time. Yes, websites by now, that's been around a good while as well in our industry. But the whole sort of digital marketing space has changed so much since COVID. Social media and social selling has got a massive part to play in how we do things.
In a way, it's actually quite exciting because it has changed so much, and we we felt obviously that COVID was horrendous times for a lot of folk, but at the same time, we felt that we were actually playing our part. Folks were at home, folks were getting bored, folks could actually spend time in the garden and do the things that they hadn't got time to do. So we were very, very busy 2020, 2021. And the website obviously was ranked high enough. It was visible. The rankings and the phone calls were through the roof. And in a way, thankfully they were, because obviously all the sites shut again type thing. So our main sort of bread and butter basically sort of fell to the bottom. The domestic customer basically went crazy. But had we done all the marketing which we're doing now and next year in 2019, we'd have broken. We were working. Every member of the team was at its breaking point. We had folks on furlough. We had folks basically isolating, and we were busier than ever been before. And in a way, it's actually quite nice, because we know the market's getting tough, right? Things are getting tough out there. But effectively, what we've done the last 12 months, we've never done before. And all we're trying to do is try to maintain sales in a falling market. And we have got a website now again to really, really sort of turn up and tune properly to try and allow us to try and sort of maintain sales again. And as and when things pick up in 2-3 years, whatever it is, we'll be in the right place again. But I think there's businesses that had got everything dialed in pre-pandemic and saw exponential growth those couple of years. And if they're sat here today thinking there's nothing else left to do, I'll be quite worried. Whereas we're not. We've still got a lot more to do. There's a lot more we can do. But yeah, so digital marketing is changing fast. It's giving opportunities. But I think it's through COVID, with folks buying a lot more online through COVID, and has changed the way that we have Teams calls, Zoom calls. We use it internally. We use it for the office. And probably actually, Andreas, my question for answer for yourself as well. We started to do it. We have a team meeting every week pre-COVID. But it would be just for the sales team in the office. The lorry drivers, I'd basically debrief them probably once a quarter, maybe probably once a year. I started doing little videos every week on a Friday afternoon on the lorry. I was out driving at the time, about where we are, because we've got Power BI. I remember saying back in 2019, everything was handwritten. I had absolutely no idea what average transaction was. I had no idea what the margin was per invoice. I had no idea what the margin was per week. I get the P&L back sort of, middle part of the month. So 6 weeks later, I know where we are. I had no idea, day to day, week to week. Suddenly, it's having this data on Power BI on my phone in the lorry, reporting back.
Not
to the
while
team.
he's driving.
No. At a lay-by, reporting back to the team where we were, what was going on, the numbers of that week, which was in a way reinforcing what they were doing was the right approach. What had gone well, what had gone wrong, who did an absolutely fantastic week. And I've done a video every Friday afternoon since COVID. Yeah. And I've done a couple of days, but effectively that in terms of getting that back to the team is great. So the use of that's on WhatsApp, the use of Power BI, the use of the CRM system, and to have the ability to have everything on there. The thought now of going back 2019, yes, it was handwriting invoice, but every invoice had to be inputted onto Sage. Every invoice had to be on Sage. I mean, it's nuts. But at the time, though, unless you've got 40-50K to go and invest in a whole new IT suite, you can't always do it. We've invested so much money in infrastructure in the last 4 years to be in a position where we have got the numbers at the end of our fingertips, which means we can go and play with it. We can go and look at marketing strategy. We can go and sort of try different things because we can see the effect of that straight away. We did a radio advert 2016, 2017. One of the guys in the office, Dave, wrote a cracking poem, absolute awesome poem. It was on heart radio 3 times a day, but it wasn't tracked. And it was, even though a lot of folks heard it, I don't know whether it actually
no idea what the return is, because you know there was a tracked telephone number on it, wasn't there?
Yeah.
But there was no way to take that sort of data and use it. And the CRM system, the reporting system we've got now, gives you that full visibility. When you run a campaign, you know whether it's been successful, and we can now separate campaigns. You know, is it one that builds brand awareness? And and that's okay if it doesn't generate, a return that you think, I've put a bit into that and I've not quite made what I was hoping from it. but it's generated a lot of brand awareness. That's okay, and you can kind of make your peace with that a little bit.
But when you start cold calling again, and I think the brand massively put so much energy and effort into the brand the last 12 months. So when you start cold calling again, and folks have heard of you, suddenly it changes that call dynamic so much. So it's just having it coming at it from all angles at all times, which is what we're trying to do. So.
Brilliant. That's some really good insights there, and there's it just shows how much the technology has changed the business. There's two more kind of quick questions that I just want to run through with you, and I think this next one is just around AI has been mentioned a couple of times, and I'm personally just slightly curious to understand how that's fitting within the business. If it's something that you're kind of using from an ideas perspective, how is that fitting into the day to day, and where do you see that potentially going over the next sort of 5 years, perhaps?
I'm quickly going to answer it from my perspective, which is more vision, create. I know what I want to achieve. I am not up to date with technology per se. Freddie is. So from my point of view, the fact that if we can have a website with every question answered on the website, that folks can dial in the evenings and the weekends through the AI, through some sort of bot chat, and effectively have all those questions answered by a licensed sort of AI chat, would be phenomenal. I think it would actually save a lot of manpower. It will give the folks the information they want straight away. In terms of actually technically making it work, I know obviously it's a lot harder behind the scenes than we thought it was, but we're on the case on that. We're building that at the moment. That's my point of view. I'm excited about it.
I mean, it comes back to helping people ultimately. Like George says, to have that sort of knowledge base that we can draw on is great. But I also think that there is an element of storytelling around it as well, because AI is here to, like, it's already proven itself that it's going to be here to stay. Like the amount of people that are using it has just gone through the roof. But what we said earlier on about personality, that's got to come through as well. All right, because yes, it's wonderful having an AI chatbot, and there are some pretty cool ones out there now. Like there was one, we went to a conference a few weeks ago, and there was a car dealership there, and their little chatbot in the corner, rather than being manned by a person, it's just got automatic answers for you. So you can just say tax, and the car that you're looking at, it'll bring up the tax band for that car and what you're paying. And like, that's really cool. That's really helpful from a customer point of view. They're going to love that. There's no personality with it. So the challenge for us is, can we get the personality or the brand of George Davies Turf into our AI chatbot? And I think we can.
They come up with this thing, George Jr.
George Jr.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
Because people want that story behind it. Customers are more discerning than they ever have been before. All right, ultimately they're seeking answers and they're seeking help, but they want a story. They want to be invested in you as a brand, and they want to trust you.
Yeah,
and it's about building that trust. You can't just say, we're George Davies, we think we're great, like, give us an opportunity. They're not going to say, or certainly not many of them can go, oh yeah, okay, fine, why not? I trust you. They want to be shown why they should trust you. And it's all about telling that story of how we can help, how we can do things differently. And using AI to do that would be a really, really cool tool.
And these guys, Freddie, Aaron, Rob, and Dave, I mean, I'm game. I'm game full stop. So I think we had a few beers. I think I had a few skips in London, and about 11 o'clock, I don't know, they decided to this old solid here. So now they have me dressed up in some sort of flat cap, little check shirt, tie, old jacket type thing, bits and bobs, and I said to Fred, look, should I get a grey wig? No, George, you don't need a grey wig thing. I was like, all right, but effectively it's like trying to get this character out there that is answering questions for people from a different angle, and I'm probably a bit more grumpy in that one, and a bit more direct, and I could be a bit more sort of farmerish and stuff, but that's one angle of it. And then we also got the general sort of how-to videos that we're trying to go through and educate people as best I can. And then there was George Judy coming as well. So it'll cover all sort of 3 bases. So it's me in the middle, and then I've got the old version and the younger version on AI Bar. So it's quite fun, exciting.
Yeah, that honestly, to see a business like yourselves come in such a short time frame from where the business was to where it is now, based on all of these new resources that you essentially have available, is honestly it's fantastic to see. And I think clearly, as a business, you're one of the fastest moving, one of the most progressive businesses within the space that's adopting these as we're seeing them sort of reach popularity. Final question before we finish up is, in terms of businesses in the agricultural space, in terms of industrial businesses who maybe haven't adopted technology in the way that some other industries have, what's one piece of advice, in a sentence or two, that you would give to those business owners that are looking to maybe work on their online presence or the technology that they're adopting?
Fred, do you want to go or not?
Well, I mean, I think the ability to test and measure anything is absolutely critical. And having the systems and processes that we've put in place over the years, I mean, we're still developing all the time. We can always be better. That's why we're learning. But all the systems and processes we put in place, we put them in at least 1 or 2 times before, so there's been a couple of iterations of it. And having all those systems talking to each other has been a game changer, and that's what Power BI has done for us. And the Microsoft, we do everything through a Microsoft platform. Having all of that data available in one place has been game changer.
Yeah. Marketing is numbers, right? And if you know your numbers, you know what's working. So knowing your numbers every day, every week, every month, reporting back. I love graphs. So I don't take Mickey at me. I'll probably go about 100 graphs I look at each basis type thing. We analyse everything. And I think, to be fair, if there's one message I probably would say is, don't wait until it's broken before you try and fix it. We were basically 2018, 2019, busy, had a sort of busiest year we ever had, and made no money. And ultimately, I'm here. We're going to basically put people, pay their wages, and I want to provide the stability for those guys to know that we are secure. And effectively, without knowing those numbers all the time and getting really dialed into them, you're at risk. You're at risk, and you can't track where you are. You can't track where you're going. You can't forecast where you're going. And so, know your numbers, test and measuring. Customer service is absolutely key. I think customer service, in a way, is going to become a dark art, because I've got 5 kids. I'm on the case all the time. I communication, talking bits and pieces, just getting out there, meeting friends, off your phone. And it's a balance, because everything is so IT based that you see folks at the bus stop, you see 5 or 6 kids, and they're all basically there, text each other at the bus stop. It's like, guys, come on, talk. And I think if we can utilise the technology through, emails are great. We want to get some video bios done on the end of email signatures, so that folks can actually have a little bio of the person they're dealing with, not just a photograph. I want a bio. This is Joe. This is who they are. And I think if we can try and utilise technology to embrace that customer service and that communication, which we do naturally, that's what we're humans, that's what we do. If we can get that across, I think we're going to we can carve out a niche, and also anybody else in the industry can do as well. Because in the day, there'll be a lot of folks that are going to rely completely on AI and effectively go back inside, and end up with a computer. So I'd be wary that you don't go AI crazy and you use it in balance and keep it all in perspective.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, certainly with both of those comments. Well, George and Freddie, it's honestly been an incredible conversation. I think you've shed some light on some real key issues within the industry. Whilst we finish up, would you mind just sharing a bit more about where the audience can find the business and find your social channels, maybe the website URL, and then we'll finish up from there.
So we're Joe, it's been an absolute delight, Joe, Andreas, both of you. Thank you for having us. You can find us with georgedaviesturf.co.uk. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Pinterest. We've got a TikTok channel as well. Yeah, no, you can find us in all those places. We love talking to people as well, so also you can give us a ring.
And look, I'm always game for a bit of fun. If any of you see any of our red lorries, we do about 10,000 a week in home counties. If any of you see our red lorries, just take a little photograph, not driving, and just ping into us or whatever. It'd be fantastic to see if you can do that or not. And yeah, we absolutely love this last hour. We want to just help as many people we can. We've learned a lot the last 20 odd years, and the more we can help people out, the better. So
brilliant. Well, guys, been honestly incredible to have you on. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Lovely to meet you.